Picture this. A single mother working two jobs discovers that feeding her kids at McDonald's now costs more than grocery shopping for an entire week. But first, let's examine the shocking data that reveals just how dramatically the relationship between working families and fast food has deteriorated. It parallels challenges in healthcare, where insurance premiums and out-of-pocket costs consume larger portions of family budgets, despite modest wage increases. The pattern repeats in housing markets, where starter homes and affordable rentals disappear from price ranges that working families can realistically afford. Transportation costs, from vehicle purchases to public transit fares, outpace income growth and force families to make difficult choices about mobility and employment access. Even basic utilities like electricity and water consume larger portions of household budgets, as infrastructure costs and regulatory requirements drive up monthly bills. The McDonald's story becomes a lens for understanding how cost pressures simultaneously affect multiple sectors of the economy that serve working American families. These converging pressures create what economists call a cost of living crisis, where essential expenses rise faster than incomes across broad segments of the population. Fast food was supposed to be recession-proof because it provided affordable alternatives when other options became too expensive. But that safety net function is now compromised. When families can no longer rely on traditional affordable options, they're forced to make increasingly difficult trade-offs between basic needs and financial stability. The result is gradual erosion of living standards that happens slowly enough that families often don't recognize the full extent of change until major adjustments become necessary. This erosion affects different demographic groups differently, but working families with children face particularly acute pressures as they navigate competing demands on limited budgets. Right now, McDonald's holds the dubious distinction of ranking dead last in customer satisfaction among major restaurant chains, a fall from grace that seemed impossible just 5 years ago. Senior citizens on fixed incomes find that their purchasing power steadily declines as the cost of everyday necessities outpaces Social Security adjustments and pension increases. Young adults entering the workforce discover that entry-level wages provide less financial security and fewer lifestyle options than previous generations experienced. The McDonald's crisis illustrates how these broader economic pressures manifest in everyday decisions that families must make about how to allocate their limited resources. But this analysis also reveals important insights about how families are adapting to these new economic realities and what those adaptations might mean for the future. As fast food becomes less accessible, families are developing new strategies for managing food costs and meeting nutritional needs within tighter budget constraints. Many families are returning to home cooking, meal planning, and bulk purchasing strategies that require more time investment but provide better value than restaurant dining. Others are exploring alternative food sources, from community gardens to wholesale buying clubs, that bypass traditional retail markups but require different shopping patterns. Some families are adjusting their dining expectations, treating restaurant meals as special occasions rather than routine convenience options. These adaptations represent both resourcefulness and sacrifice, as families invest more time and effort in activities that were previously handled through market purchases. The shift also reflects changing priorities, where convenience becomes less important than affordability when household budgets are under sustained pressure. Industry research confirms that low-income traffic has plummeted by nearly 10% across the entire fast food sector, while middle-income visits continue declining steadily. But while individual families can adapt their consumption patterns, these widespread changes have significant implications for the broader economy and employment landscape. Reduced fast food consumption affects employment in restaurants, food distribution, advertising, and numerous other sectors that depend on consumer spending in this category. Lower restaurant traffic reduces demand for commercial real estate, impacts suppliers throughout the food chain, and affects local tax revenues in communities where these businesses operate. The economic multiplier effects extend beyond direct restaurant employment into trucking, packaging, agriculture, and financial services that support the industry. When major consumer categories experience sustained declines, the ripple effects can contribute to broader economic slowdowns that affect employment and business investment decisions. This creates feedback loops where reduced consumer spending leads to business adjustments that further pressure household incomes and spending capacity. Understanding these dynamics helps explain why the McDonald's crisis represents more than a single company's challenges or even an industry-specific adjustment. It reflects fundamental tensions in the American economic system between business cost pressures and consumer affordability that may require structural solutions rather than market-based corrections. Don't miss our final analysis, because we're about to examine what this transformation means for the future of affordable food access and working family economic security. As we look toward the future, the McDonald's transformation raises critical questions about the long-term viability of affordable food access for American working families. This exodus leaves only affluent consumers as a growing share of remaining customers, completely undermining the volume-based business model that created the fast food revolution. The fast food industry's traditional role as a financial safety net for families during difficult economic periods appears to be ending, with significant implications for food security and family budgets. Without affordable restaurant alternatives, families face increased pressure to manage food costs through home preparation, which requires more time, planning, and cooking skills than many households possess. This shift disproportionately affects single parents, families with multiple jobs, and households where long work hours make meal preparation challenging or impossible. The loss of affordable dining options also reduces flexibility for families managing unpredictable work schedules, childcare arrangements, and transportation constraints. For many working families, fast food provided crucial convenience during transition periods, emergencies, and busy schedules when home cooking wasn't practical or possible. As these options become less accessible, families must develop new strategies for managing food needs during challenging circumstances, often at higher time and financial costs. The industry itself faces difficult choices about whether to pursue higher-income customers or attempt to rebuild affordability for working families. Some chains are experimenting with value menus and promotional pricing to retain price-sensitive customers, but these efforts often compromise profit margins and may not be sustainable long-term. Others are focusing on premium offerings and improved service quality to justify higher prices, effectively abandoning the mass-market approach that built the industry. Technology investments continue as chains attempt to reduce labor costs and improve operational efficiency, but customer acceptance remains mixed and implementation challenges persist. For generations, McDonald's operated under an unwritten social contract. Regardless of economic turbulence, whether gasoline prices soared or housing costs climbed, affordable meals remained within reach. The success of these various strategies will determine whether fast food can rebuild its value proposition or will continue transitioning toward a smaller, more upscale market position. Innovation opportunities exist in areas like ghost kitchens, meal subscriptions, and hybrid retail models that could potentially restore affordability while managing cost pressures. Alternative business models might include community-supported restaurants, cooperative ownership structures, or public-private partnerships focused on food access rather than maximum profitability. However, these innovations require significant investment and experimentation, with uncertain outcomes and extended development timelines. The broader economic environment will play a crucial role in determining whether fast food can successfully adapt to current cost pressures or will face continued structural decline. Wage growth, housing costs, healthcare expenses, and other factors affecting family budgets will influence consumer spending capacity and restaurant affordability expectations. Energy costs, supply chain stability, labor availability, and regulatory environments will continue affecting operational costs and pricing pressures for restaurant operators. The resolution of these competing pressures will determine whether the current crisis represents a temporary adjustment or a permanent transformation of American food service. For policymakers, the fast food affordability crisis highlights broader questions about wage adequacy, cost of living, and economic mobility for working American families. When market-based solutions fail to provide affordable food access, public policy interventions might become necessary to address food security and family economic stability. This reliability transformed McDonald's beyond a mere restaurant chain into a cornerstone of American affordability, a place where economic status never determined access to food. These could include enhanced nutrition assistance programs, worker wage supports, or regulatory approaches to managing food industry cost pressures. The McDonald's story ultimately reflects fundamental tensions in American capitalism between business profitability requirements and social needs for affordable, essential services. Resolving these tensions may require new approaches to business organization, public policy, and community-level solutions that prioritize accessibility alongside financial sustainability. The outcome will significantly influence quality of life, economic opportunity, and social mobility for millions of American working families in the years ahead. In the end, the story of McDonald's in 2025 is simply the story of America itself. Prices rising faster than wages, everyday conveniences slipping out of reach, and working families forced to make increasingly difficult choices about basic needs. Fast food didn't collapse overnight. It shifted gradually, pressured by costs, weakened by economic instability, and transformed by technological changes that many customers never requested. The result is a country where $6 for a basic meal feels unreasonable, not because the price is shocking, but because the value has disappeared. This moment represents more than frustration with restaurant pricing. It's a turning point where consumers are thinking differently, spending differently, and demanding better value than what they've been receiving. The question facing the fast food industry is whether it can adapt to these new expectations or will continue losing relevance in American family life. For working families, the challenge is developing new strategies for managing food costs and maintaining nutritional standards within increasingly constrained budgets. But current pricing data exposes how completely that foundation has crumbled. Nationwide, the average Big Mac now demands between $5.69 and just over $6. The broader economic implications suggest that the McDonald's crisis represents an early indicator of more widespread affordability challenges that may reshape multiple sectors of American commerce. Understanding these trends now provides crucial insight for families, businesses, and policymakers, preparing for an economic environment where traditional assumptions about affordability may no longer apply. The forces reshaping fast food are also transforming retail, healthcare, housing, and transportation in ways that will require adaptive strategies and innovative solutions. Next week, we'll examine how these same economic pressures are affecting grocery stores and food retailers, revealing the broader transformation of American food access and family nutrition security. We'll analyze the hidden costs driving food price inflation, the technology changes reshaping grocery shopping, and the strategies families are using to maintain food security despite rising costs. You'll discover which food categories are experiencing the steepest price increases, how supply chain disruptions continue affecting availability and pricing, and what these changes mean for long-term food affordability. Most importantly, we'll reveal the specific steps families can take now to protect their food budgets against continued inflation and economic uncertainty. If tonight's analysis helped you understand the real forces behind rising food costs and changing family economics, make sure you're prepared for the continued transformation of American food access. In major metropolitan markets, including New York, Los Angeles, and San Francisco, those prices surge above $7, placing basic McDonald's meals beyond the reach of countless families. While that price increase might seem manageable in isolation, the trajectory of the cost escalation reveals the true magnitude of what's happening to American household budgets. Since 2019, McDonald's menu prices have surged approximately 40%, while compensation for service sector and blue-collar workers has failed to match the genuine cost of living increases. This isn't fiction. This is the daily reality for millions of American families who are abandoning the golden arches in unprecedented numbers, and the implications reach far beyond fast food. The mathematics are straightforward. When menu prices outpace earnings by such margins, families have no choice but to seek alternatives elsewhere. Industry data confirms this exodus is accelerating. multiple major chains report that low-income customer traffic has dropped by nearly double-digit percentages. Middle-income customers are withdrawing as well, leaving only high-income consumers to compensate for lost volume. But this strategy contradicts the fundamental economics that built fast food success. This phenomenon represents something entirely unprecedented in American fast food history. These establishments were engineered for massive volumes of everyday Americans purchasing quick, affordable, dependable meals. When core customer demographics retreat, the entire business framework begins destabilizing, triggering a potentially irreversible cycle of decline. However, escalating prices constitute only one facet of this developing crisis. The dining experience itself has undergone fundamental changes that most customers never requested or desired. What previously involved straightforward walk-in ordering now demands navigating complex kiosks, mobile applications, rewards programs, and frequently AI-powered voice systems at drive-thrus. What once epitomized convenience now resembles a system engineered to maximize revenue extraction from customers while delivering diminished value and increased frustration. Consumer research reveals extraordinary levels of dissatisfaction, with more than 80% of Americans now characterizing McDonald's as a luxury indulgence rather than an accessible meal solution. The consequences extend well beyond individual restaurant performance. McDonald's functions as an economic indicator for a system where necessities become costlier, wages stagnate, and everyday Americans quietly abandon previously reliable options. What you're witnessing isn't just about burger prices or corporate decisions. This is the collapse of America's most reliable financial safety net for working families. Stay focused on what follows, because we're about to uncover the three fundamental economic pressures that explain not only why McDonald's increased prices, but why they perceived no alternative. Now, delivering on our promise, here are the three underlying economic forces propelling this transformation that reach far beyond McDonald's into every sector of American commerce. First force, supply chain cost explosion. Understanding McDonald's pricing strategy requires examining the economics of operating fast food establishments in today's economic climate. The reality is that McDonald's didn't escalate prices from corporate greed. They raised them from operational necessity, driven by costs spiraling beyond management control. Beef prices have maintained steady upward momentum across multiple years, propelled by supply constraints, drought conditions affecting cattle operations, and substantially elevated transportation expenses. Poultry expenses have surged due to avian influenza outbreaks that decimated chicken and turkey populations, while dairy costs have increased due to feed price inflation and agricultural labor shortages. Even fundamental ingredients like potatoes for French fries, bread for sandwich buns, and cheese for burgers have experienced substantial cost increases that amplify throughout the supply network. When every primary ingredient experiences double-digit cost escalation simultaneously, restaurant operators confront an impossible decision: absorb losses and operate unprofitably, or transfer costs to consumers. Second force, labor market transformation. The fast food sector's conventional employment model has experienced complete breakdown over recent years. Minimum wage legislation in multiple states and municipalities has elevated baseline labor expenses, while worker competition has compelled restaurants to offer increased starting compensation and enhanced benefits. For over 5 decades, McDonald's served as more than just a restaurant. It was a promise that no matter how difficult life became, you could always afford to feed your family. Health insurance expenses, workers' compensation premiums, and additional employee benefits have risen substantially, creating expense layers that previous business cycles never encountered. Simultaneously, persistent staffing shortages have forced restaurants to depend heavily on overtime compensation and premium wages to maintain fundamental operations. The outcome is a labor expense structure that renders the traditional business model of inexpensive food and minimal prices financially unsustainable. Third force, operational cost surge. Beyond ingredients and labor, every dimension of restaurant operations has become dramatically more expensive. Commercial real estate expenses have increased substantially in most markets, while energy costs for heating, cooling, and cooking have surged due to volatile fuel markets. Transportation and delivery expenses have skyrocketed. Insurance premiums have climbed dramatically, and equipment maintenance has become costlier as supply chains for replacement components have faced disruption. Furthermore, restaurants have been compelled to invest extensively in digital infrastructure, including mobile applications, kiosks, and AI ordering systems, requiring continuous maintenance and technological updates. When combined with the previous forces, these operational pressures create a perfect storm that renders conventional fast food pricing models completely unviable. Understanding these pressures clarifies why McDonald's faced limited alternatives, but it also demonstrates why this crisis transcends any individual restaurant chain. These identical cost pressures are impacting grocery retailers, gasoline stations, retail establishments, and virtually every business serving working American families. But by late 2025, that promise has been shattered, and the data reveals a transformation that should alarm every American who cares about economic opportunity. The McDonald's situation becomes a window into broader economic developments that are quietly transforming the relationship between American businesses and their customer base. But while these cost pressures explain price necessity, they don't explain why customer satisfaction has plummeted to historic lows or why the dining experience feels fundamentally different. That transformation requires understanding how McDonald's attempted to manage cost pressures through technology and automation, and why those solutions generated unexpected complications. In response to escalating labor costs and staffing difficulties, McDonald's and comparable fast food chains made substantial investments in digital ordering systems, self-service kiosks, and automated processes. The strategy appeared logical. Substitute expensive human labor with technology, streamline operations, and maintain profitability despite elevated ingredient and operational costs. Mobile applications were designed to enhance efficiency and cultivate customer loyalty through rewards, programs, and personalized promotions that would justify higher menu pricing. Self-service kiosks were intended to reduce labor expenses while providing customers greater control over ordering experiences and encouraging premium purchases through strategic upselling prompts. AI-powered voice recognition technology at drive-thrus promised to accelerate service while reducing dependence on human order takers during peak traffic periods. Theoretically, these technological solutions addressed multiple challenges simultaneously: reducing labor dependency, improving operational efficiency, and enhancing customer engagement. But implementing these systems has created an entirely different set of challenges that many customers find frustrating and alienating. Tonight, you'll uncover why a simple Big Mac meal has evolved from a budget necessity into what 80% of Americans now consider a luxury purchase. Mobile applications frequently malfunction, creating delays and confusion during ordering processes. Many customers, particularly older adults, find interfaces confusing and prefer traditional human interaction. Self-service kiosks experience regular breakdowns, require frequent maintenance, and often confuse customers who simply want to place straightforward orders quickly. AI voice recognition systems struggle with accents, background noise, and complex orders, creating frustrating back-and-forth exchanges that delay service rather than expediting it. More fundamentally, these technological solutions require customers to perform work that employees previously handled, creating perceptions that they're paying more while receiving less service. When kiosks malfunction or applications crash, fewer staff members are available to resolve problems, creating bottlenecks and delays that undermine the convenience that defined fast food. The result is an experience that feels less convenient, more complicated, and more impersonal than what customers remember and expect from fast food dining. Customer research reveals growing resentment toward these technological systems, with many respondents describing feeling forced into processes they never requested and don't appreciate. This technological transformation has coincided with price increases to create a perfect storm of customer dissatisfaction. Higher costs combined with a more frustrating experience. In an environment where family budgets face unprecedented pressure, frustration translates directly into lost business as customers question why they should pay more for inferior experiences. The combination of affordability concerns and experience deterioration explains why McDonald's now occupies last place among major restaurant chains in customer satisfaction measurements. You'll learn how McDonald's prices have skyrocketed 40% since 2019, while working family incomes have stagnated, creating an affordability gap that's reshaping American dining. But this customer satisfaction crisis indicates an even deeper problem confronting the entire fast food industry. The fundamental business model may no longer be viable in the current economic environment. Don't miss our next analysis, because we're about to examine whether fast food is experiencing a temporary market correction or the beginning of permanent structural decline. For decades, the fast food business model relied on three unshakable pillars that sustained the industry through recessions, inflation cycles, and evolving cultural preferences. Those three pillars were affordable prices that made fast food accessible to virtually every American family, high volume driven by massive customer traffic, and fast, predictable service that prioritized convenience above everything else. This model demonstrated remarkable resilience for more than half a century, enabling fast food chains to expand internationally and become integral components of American community life. But by late 2025, all three pillars face unprecedented pressure simultaneously, creating what industry analysts characterize as a rare convergence of structural challenges. The first pillar, affordable pricing, has been completely undermined by the cost pressures we examined earlier. Fast food no longer provides meaningful savings compared to alternative dining options. In numerous markets, complete McDonald's meals now cost nearly as much as sit-down restaurant experiences, eliminating the value proposition that attracted customers for generations. When prices escalate faster than wages, particularly for working-class families, the psychological value anchor breaks. A $6 Big Mac signifies more than menu modification. It indicates that something fundamental has shifted in America's cost structure, and once consumers recognize that disconnect, rebuilding trust becomes extraordinarily difficult. And you'll understand why low-income customers are fleeing fast food at rates that industry experts describe as unprecedented and potentially irreversible. The second pillar, high volume, is collapsing as core customer segments abandon fast food. The industry's strength always derived from foot traffic generated by working families, making frequent, modest purchases. High-income customers cannot substitute for the departure of millions of low- and middle-income diners who formed the foundation of fast food's economic model. Volume losses create a destructive cycle. Reduce sales force franchisees to increase prices even higher to preserve margins, which accelerates customer abandonment. Lower volume also reduces operational efficiency, as fixed costs like rent and equipment must be distributed across fewer transactions, further pressuring profit margins. The third pillar, fast and predictable service, has been compromised by technological changes and staffing reductions implemented to control costs. Digital ordering systems were supposed to streamline operations, but instead, they've introduced friction, confusion, and detachment that undermines the convenience promise. Customers don't want to navigate applications, kiosks, or AI voices just to order items they've purchased regularly for years. When experiences stop feeling effortless, fast food loses its core identity. Reduced staffing means fewer employees available to resolve problems when technology fails, creating service delays that contradict the speed promise that defines the category. This simultaneous pressure on all three foundational pillars creates a crisis that transcends typical business cycle challenges or temporary market adjustments. The convergence suggests that fast food may be confronting a permanent structural transformation rather than a temporary downturn that will naturally correct itself. Most critically, at exactly the 5-minute mark, we'll expose the three hidden economic forces driving this crisis that extend far beyond McDonald's into every aspect of American family life. Industry analysts debate whether these changes represent a new equilibrium that successful chains will adapt to, or the beginning of a long-term decline for traditional fast food. The answer depends largely on whether chains can reconstruct their value proposition in an economic environment where their traditional advantages no longer provide competitive protection. Fast food now competes not as a budget alternative, but as another dining option that families evaluate alongside groceries, casual dining, and meal delivery services. In this new competitive landscape, fast food's historical advantages of speed and convenience become less meaningful if the price premium no longer justifies the trade-offs. The industry confronts a fundamental choice: reinvent the business model to provide genuine value in the current economic environment, or accept a smaller, more upscale market position. But this transformation extends beyond business strategy into broader questions about American economic structure and the future of affordable food access for working families. The McDonald's crisis serves as a microcosm of larger economic trends that are quietly reshaping daily life for millions of American families. When the most affordable restaurant option becomes unaffordable for its target customers, it reflects systemic problems in the relationship between wages and living costs. These problems extend far beyond restaurant pricing into housing, healthcare, transportation, and virtually every category of essential family expenses. Fast food's affordability crisis mirrors similar crises in retail shopping, where discount chains struggle to maintain low prices amid rising operational costs.